Our last section on light and color will deal with different effects of refraction, and then we're going to talk about how rainbows are made. So for our effects of refraction, there are three different ones that we study. The first one is the one that's most common, and that's the apparent shift in the position of objects immersed in a liquid. So if I have a fish that's underwater, light would reflect off of that fish, and then remember that it's going to refract and get to my eye, and that's what I'm able to see. However, our brain interprets us as seeing in a straight line, so we think that the fish is over here, but actually it's a little bit closer to us. There's a quick picture for you to show you refraction. Another example of refraction is extended daylight. Light's going to travel slightly slower in the Earth's atmosphere than in outer space because we have different densities depending on those layers in the atmosphere. And what that means is sunlight will get refracted the closer it gets to the surface of the Earth. So if we're standing on top of the world, and here's our horizon, when we look out, we think we see the sun. However, because that light is bending, the sun is physically below the horizon. We just perceive it as being able to see it above the horizon. And this works both when the sun is rising, that sunlight reaches us before the sun technically gets above the horizon, and it also works at sunset. So even though the sun technically is already set, we're still going to be able to see some of those light rays. And then the last effect of refraction would be a mirage. I don't know if you've ever looked down the road on a hot day. If you look further down the road, sometimes it looks like the surface is really shiny and it seems like there's a puddle there, but then when you get closer to it, it's actually very dry. Well, what's happening is the index of refraction for the air is going to change as the temperature changes, so that causes the light rays to refract or bend. So we do get the physical reflection from the light hitting the surface and bouncing to our eye, but we also are going to get the refraction of those light rays. So as that density is changing of the air, that light is bending and also reaching our eyes. So it's almost like a double dose of sunlight at that spot. And our brains interpret that as looking like a puddle. Now I do mention a little demonstration over here. So don't forget to stop by the classroom and see some of our cool refraction demos in person. The last thing we're going to work with light and color is a property called dispersion. Now the definition for dispersion is the separation of white light into a spectrum of colors. And I know you're a little bit young, but maybe you've heard of the group Pink Floyd. If you go back and look at one of their album covers, they actually show light going through a prism and then it separates into a rainbow. And that would be an example of dispersion. So in our notes, we're going to take this idea of separating that white light into the spectrum of colors and draw how a rainbow is formed with an individual water droplet. So we're going to look and see what happens inside each water drop. And the sunlight gets dispersed by various droplets in the atmosphere, and those different colors are going to be put together such that we see a rainbow. So for this next section of your notes, you need at least 3 different colors. On my copy, I'm going to use red, yellow, and blue. So if you don't have those colors, I would suggest that you use either a red or an orange color for your first one, and then your second color should be either yellow or green, and then your third color should be either blue or purple to represent the violet. So we're going to take our normal color, and light is going to be drawn like this, and this is our incident sunlight. And it's at this point right here that dispersion will occur. And what that means is our sunlight is going to split up into the colors. Technically, it does split into the entire spectrum, but to make things a little bit easier to draw, again, I'm only going to use 3 colors. So get your first color ready, either red or orange. So with that first color, we're going to show a slight bend, and then we're going to do our second color. And it should bend just a little bit more, so either yellow or green for you. And then our third color is going to be the blue or the violet, and it's going to bend even more. So far you should have a picture that looks like this. Again, if you wanted to get really involved, you could do the entire spectrum of colors, but to keep things a little bit cleaner, I'm just going to do 3 of them. Now it's over at this point that we're going to get internal reflection occurring. So from here, we're going to look at one color at a time and see how the light reflects. So get your red color or your orange, and it is going to cross over the other colors that we had and come down this way. Now get your second color, yellow or green, and it crosses over in front of the red one. And now we're going to do the same thing with our last color and cross it over when it reflects. So your picture should look like this. And then down here in this section, the light's going to be at such an angle that it is allowed to escape, and we're going to see refraction occur. So you should show your first color, red or orange, escaping. Now let's do the same for yellow or green. So if you notice, there is a slight bend because it is refracting, so it's going to bend just a little bit as it escapes. And now you want to do the same thing with your last color, either blue or purple. And once these colors escape, this is what's happening in every little water droplet, and we get a rainbow formed. Now your picture should look like this one. So there's a little bit cleaner version if you wanted to just double check on your copy and make sure that you have everything drawn correctly. And then when we look at a rainbow in the entire sky, it looks like this. So we are down here. Each of these little water droplets, based on where they are placed, that determines which color we see in which order. You may want to take a look and see if you can research double rainbows and see if you can find out what's different between the first rainbow that you see and then the second one, how the colors are the same and how they're different. That's it for light and color. I hope you've enjoyed this chapter, and be sure to come in so that you can see some of the really cool demonstrations that we have.